Hello Africa, brothers and sisters. For how long Africa will continue to receive tokens? Africa is given offices instead of power. Africa is given buildings instead of decisions. The United Nations is set to locate the global offices of UNICEF, UNFPA, and UN Women to Nairobi by the year 2026. This comes after Africans demanding reparations, Africans demanding permanent seats in the UN Security Council, Africans demanding reforms on global financial institutions. Instead of Africa given permanent seats in the UN Security Council, Africa has given offices of UNICEF, UNFPA, and UN Women. Is Africa going to rise by giving offices instead of power? Africa is going to rise by giving buildings instead of authorities, decisions. So, my dear brothers and sisters, please do not skip the video. Join with me in this video where we're going to share the truth about the mission or this master plan made by the powerful nation to make sure that Africa is slowing down and keeping silent. Dear lovely family, as you know, for many years, Africa has been sidelined on the global stage. No permanent seat at the UN Security Council, no true voices in shaping the future of the world. Yet now the United Nations is shifting 3 major agencies to Nairobi, Kenya. But why? Is this a sign of respect? These are what Africa has been demanding for. Or just another way to keep Africa silent while pretending to include it? Are we being given offices instead of power? Buildings instead of decision or lead decision-making authorities? So, brothers and sisters, please do not skip the video. I'm waiting to hear from you. What is your thought? What is your views on this matter?
Let's start with the basics. The United Nations recently announced it will move 3 of its major offices to Nairobi, Kenya. It sounds like progress. Nairobi is already home to UNEP and UN Habitat. Now even more UN operations will be based in Africa. That looks good on paper. But let's be clear. These are administrative offices. These are not places where the world's most powerful decisions are made. So, why now? Some believe this is a symbolic gesture meant to calm rising African frustration. As the demand for reform grows louder, this move gives the illusion of inclusion, without handing over any real power. It's like being invited to the party, but not given a seat at the table. Now, let's talk about the real issue. The UN Security Council. This council is the most powerful body in the entire United Nations. It decides on sanctions, military actions, and global peacekeeping missions. And yet, no African country has a permanent seat. Not Nigeria, not South Africa, not Egypt, not a single one. The 5 permanent members are the United States, China, Russia, the United Kingdom, and France. Countries that once divided Africa between themselves now hold veto power over global affairs. Meanwhile, Africa, home to 54 countries and over 1.4 billion people, is left on the sidelines. This system was created in 1945, at the end of World War II. At that time, much of Africa was still under colonial rule. Today, that's no longer the case. Africa is young. Africa is growing. Africa is essential. And still, Africa is unheard where it matters most. But the Security Council isn't the only place where Africa's left out. Let's talk about the IMF and the World Bank. These financial giants shape economic policies across the global south. They decide who gets loans, under what conditions, and what strings are attached. African leaders, from President William Ruto to President Cyril Ramaphosa, have called for fairer treatment. They've asked for reforms that would give Africa a real voice in shaping these global systems. But what has the response been? Summits, speeches, office relocations, symbolic moves, without structural change. It's time to understand this clearly. Power doesn't shift through public relations. It shifts through reform. So why does this matter now? Because Africa is waking up. Young people are asking questions. Citizens are demanding accountability. Leaders are uniting around a common goal: respect and representation. The relocation of UN offices may not be the change we asked for, but it shows something important. The world knows Africa is rising, and that's exactly why we can't afford to be quiet now. We can't accept gestures when we deserve justice. We can't settle for being seen when we need to be heard. Africa doesn't want handouts. Africa wants what it has always earned: a seat at the table where decisions are made. So here's the truth. Moving 3 offices to Nairobi won't give Africa a vote at the Security Council. It won't change the rules of the IMF, and it won't stop the push for reform. But it can do something else. It can remind us that the world is watching, that pressure works, that unity matters. Now, the responsibility is ours. To keep asking the hard questions, to keep pushing for reform, to keep reminding the world that Africa is not the past, it is the future. If you believe Africa deserves more than a building, if you believe Africa deserves a voice, then like, share, and subscribe to Make Africa Great. Because this isn't just commentary. This is a movement.
Africans always they're telling us that Africa is lazy, but the truth is we are still being denied lead power. How can we rise without the power? I think those are just the politics. The UN has moved its agencies to Kenya, as you heard at the beginning, but refuses to give Africa a permanent seat at the UN Security Council. Is this a step toward equality or another master plan to keep Africa on sidelines while the West calls the shots? So, brothers and sisters, please, if you have something to share with us, do so through the comment section. And if you're new in this platform, make sure that you subscribe and you hit the bell button. Also, you share this video to other Africans so that they can get this message. Please make sure that you join the big family of Make Africa Great. The aim is to share views, ideas on how we can build the better future of our mother continent, Africa. So let us now go back to the issue of these 3 offices that Africa has given. We know that these people they have plans. They know how to play the games. You remember President Joe Biden promised the Africans or African nations that US will support Africa to have a permanent seat in the UN Security Council, but with no veto power. You see, permanent seat, but no veto power. It's like you are being invited on podium, but not on the table. So that's what's happening. And now Trump is in power. Biden is leaving offices or left office, but Trump is not talking about supporting Africa to have a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. And why Africa is given offices, not permanent seats on the UN Security Council? Are we prepared to have permanent seats? And how can we get the permanent seat on the UN Security Council? First of all, as I said many times, Africa must speak with one voice. Africa must come together, unite. Fellow Africans, let us ask ourselves, why UN eyes Nairobi as a new hub of operation? And why UN not giving Africa a permanent seat at the UN Security Council? But it is very easy to relocate offices instead of giving Africa a permanent seat or seats at the UN Security Council. You remember 2 years ago, if I'm not wrong, the former president of US, Mr. Joe Biden, promised African leaders, African continent, that US will support Africa to have a permanent seat at the UN Security Council, but with no veto power. Why they fear Africa to have a veto power? One thing that we need to understand, Africa is still place where the world is looking for resources. So if we can give in power, we can deny sometimes exploitation. So there's a great fear that if we give Africa permanent seats at the UN Security Council, Africa will deny exploitation. Africa will reject exploitation. So they're still finding the best way how they can give Africa a permanent seat at the UN Security Council that will not stop these powerful nations from exploitation. What they are doing right now is to come and do investment, taking lands, taking mines. Then you will see at the end that they will give us a permanent seat at the UN Security Council that will do nothing, because right now they are scrambling for Africa. They are busy of taking land, resources, owning resources. Then they will give us permanent seats that will become useless. The only way for Africa to be respected, I have been saying this many times, is Africa to come together, to unite. Right now, Africa is not speaking with one voice. And that's why I have been said and suggested that Africa does not need 5 permanent seats, 2 permanent seats, 3 at the UN Security Council. Africa needs only 1 permanent seat at the UN Security Council, a united Africa. And we need to ask and to demand permanent seat while we are united. Right now, Africa is divided, broken continent. We need to bring Africans together. So the current generation of leadership, they have a great duty. Our founding fathers, they did a great job to liberate this continent politically. This is a time for African leader, new generation of leadership, to unite the continent of Africa, to bring Africans together, and to demand economic freedom. So if you will be given a permanent seat at the UN Security Council, you will demand economic freedom. They think that those who are exploiting Africa are not ready to give Africa. Africa looks like the hunting ground where people can come and look what they can take. Chinese are here. They are looking what is easy for them to take. Europeans were here for many years. America is here. Russia is here. And other civilizations are here in the continent of Africa. Everyone is looking what they can take. But it is difficult to find Africans taking or exploiting other continent. You see? So it will be difficult for Africa to have permanent seats. But at the end of the time, Africa will be given a permanent seat at the UN Security Council with nothing. And if we will be given permanent seat, we demand reparation. So they're not ready to pay. That's why they are delaying processes. So now we have been given these 3 offices to delay us from demanding what is right for us. So, kings and queens, ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear from you. What is your views? These 3 major offices will change things, will make Africa being respected, will equalize things. Or these are just like master plan to silence Africa. So please share with us your opinion, your views on this matter. And why Nairobi? Why Kenya? And we know Kenya is East African country that is hosting UK military base and the US military base. Why Kenya? Why Kenya? Why not maybe Uganda? Of course, even if it was Uganda, you may ask the same question. Why Uganda? Why Kenya? Why Tanzania? Why Burundi? Why Burkina Faso? But all in all, we know the truth behind of this. But all in all, as Africans, we need to come together to unite. That's the only solution that will make Africa being respected. So up to that, my dear lovely family, friends, fellow Africans, I'm waiting to hear from you. What is your views? What is your perspective? What is your opinions? And what do you think this will do for the continent of Africa? 3 major offices of UN agencies will make Africa respected? Will it change the lives of Africa? So I'm waiting to hear from you.
Thank you, Africa, Mama Africa. Oh, yeah. You make Africa great. Thank you, Africa. Thank you, Africa.